Let's move on now and talk with our panel about all of this. Joining me is Rebecca Grant, president of IRIS, independent research and a military analyst. And then David Schmerler, a research associate at James Martin Center for Nonproliferation Studies. David, I understand you've conducted extensive research on North Korea's missile and nuclear program. So let me start by first getting your reaction to this failed missile launch. Which would you say is more significant, the fact that it failed or that they would attempt to do it at a time when tensions are so high and a vice president's on the way?
Well, rocket science and missile launches in North Korea are used for multiple purposes in North Korea. Sometimes they're used as a sign of defiance. If something is happening in the region or the U.S. says something and they want to respond, they may conduct a missile launch in retaliation to certain actions taken by the United States. But because they are very interested in developing their ballistic missile technology, they will, of course, test missiles and through the process of developing new missile systems, many of them will fail. So it's disturbing, but it's expected in the process of developing a better ballistic missile.
Right, and as we've said, you learn as much from failure as you can almost from success, maybe even more. Rebecca, this failure does come after North Korea showed off its military might, that is, with that parade yesterday. What are your thoughts on the missiles that you saw at that parade? Some have made a lot about them. What do you think?
It was quite a variety of missiles, and the big questions are, how close are they on an intercontinental missile, and are they making progress on a submarine-launched ballistic missile? We know they've put crewed objects into orbit, so they have some capability. My assessment is they're not quite there yet on either one. So they're learning from their launches. Our analysts are learning from their launches too. But here's the new thing. These launches are starting to count against them in the international sphere. These launches are now driving the U.S. and China to work more closely together to tamp this down. So they can't just continue this program without big political consequences.
And David, you saw the missiles as well. I believe that you even called one of the ICBMs a Franken missile. Explain what you meant by that. And why were you surprised by what you saw? Because some of it looks like the Soviet hardware, say, of the 80s and 90s.
Right. Well, North Korea's ballistic missile program was founded on a simple Scud missile, which they acquired from Egypt, which in turn Egypt had acquired from the Soviet Union. So the origins of North Korea's ballistic missile program is Russian. And a lot of the new technology that we've seen that comes or breaks away from this initial, I think, a Scud-B missile also goes back to other Russian systems, including a SLBM called the R-27. I was rather surprised. Traditionally, in past military parades, we see the Scud variants, Scud-Bs and Nodongs, which are traditionally viewed as being the backbone of the North Korean ballistic missile fleet. However, this year, what we saw were the solid fuel SLBM and the land variant, which is the KN-15, which we saw tested, I think, earlier this year. And we saw the Franken missile, if you want to address that. We saw a new missile on a TEL, or a transporter Rector launcher, which is a vehicle that carries the missile.
Right. The reason you worry about that is that it makes it hard to track, and it can be launched quickly, and it's got a solid rocket motor, right? All of those reasons.
Well, the one that we saw, we're not sure about the fuel type yet. The missile that was previously associated with that truck is a liquid-fueled missile that had a series of failures, but was recently, or its sixth test last year was a success. However, this new one has the front of one of their ICBM configurations that we've seen, and the back is completely new. So I have no idea what to make of that one yet.
David, let me just stop you there before we get too deep in the weeds as far as design. This morning, Representative Ed Royce was on the State of the Union with Jake Tapper and said that North Korea's missile program is advancing quickly. Let's just quick listen.
We shouldn't take too much comfort because even in failure, this program continues to advance, and they will be closely, in the not too distant future, in a position where they could hit all 50 states in the United States with an ICBM. So I do say don't take too much comfort in this, but it is a good development that it failed.
Rebecca, he thinks that North Korea could someday soon have the ability to hit the U.S. with nuclear missiles. Does that comment surprise you, or does that seem to be in line with what we know of what this nation wants?
That's in line. One of our admirals at Strategic Command said last year it's prudent to assume as a military planner that they're getting close to this capability. But remember two things. One, we have good missile defenses, ground-based interceptors in Alaska, a lot of sea-based missile defenses in the region, and of course the THAAD, which is going into South Korea. And secondly, I think it's Kim Jong-un who should be worried. Our military and our alliance can do things to his target set that he's never even thought of. And China. North Korea is supposed to be their buffer state. They're getting very uncomfortable, and that's why we see China starting to work with us. So, yeah, there's a concern. We need to track this. We have technology solutions, and we're also using our military forces in the region to keep the pressure on and change this very dangerous game.
There's no question that the stakes are incredibly high. Rebecca Grant and David Schmeller, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.